What's going on, guys? My name is Len. Today I'm bringing you guys another video here today, and I don't know if I could have said that any quicker. But if I could have, we would already be at the next transition. So let's go and transition to the next one. So what I'm going to read you guys off is actually the Season 3 standings. It's like I said, in each order, and the order of how these teams placed is the order of their seeding coming to the tournament. So 1 through 5 obviously have the top placings, and also 12 has like the lowest placing. I know that was very helpful to those who didn't know. But still, I'm gonna read you guys off their overall record and order from least to highest as well. So let's get into it. So coming in 12th was Team Orbit, who finished 1 and 10. And 11th it was TCM, who placed 3 and 8. And 10th, 9 and 8 it was Denial, TK, and Rise, who finished 4 and 7. In 7th it was Epsilon, who placed 5 and 6. In 6th and 5th it was Team Envy, who placed 6 and 5, along with ISO, who were also 6 and 5. In 4th it was Opnation, who finished 6 and 5. In 3rd it was FaZe, who placed 7 and 4. In 2nd it was Elevate, who finished 9 and 2. And in 1st it was Opti Gaming, who finished 11 and 0 and 33 and 6 in map count. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Solid. Solid. Alright, so what we're going to do, I'm going to have my bracket on screen every once in a while, because I'm not going to go over every single game, every single team coming into this. It's not going to be worth it. I'm going to give you guys my top 4, my bottom 4 for this tournament. But before we do that, getting into my own predictions, I'm going to talk about each team in specifics. Now, my last video that I made, I believe it was like the DC recap, everyone really enjoyed how long it was. I think it was like 22 minutes, and I was like, I can't upload this is way too long, but I did it anyway because I couldn't cut it any longer, and everyone seemed to really enjoy it. So that's good. I like that a lot. So if it is a little bit long, I'm going to keep it that way just because you guys seem to like it. I'm not going to like make it extra long. I'm going to like cut it as much as I can, and if it is over 15 minutes, we'll just roll with it. So I'm just letting you guys know I do appreciate the support, and people seem to really like the amount of like depth that I got into it. So we'll see how long this video goes for. Hopefully it doesn't go for too long, but if it does, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. So we're going to start off with the team who actually placed 12th in the overall standings, which is Team Orbit. Now, I like the guys on Orbit. Very talented team. I always say that they have similar aspirations, I guess you could say. They're all younger players. They're not all super well known. And I would say in Ghost, we probably wouldn't have known in any of them, to be honest. You know, TCM and Happy are the main slayers for the squad. Facinto's very talented as well. And Accuracy kind of goes under the radar a little bit. He's a very good objective-minded player. He's a support player. And ultimately, he can really dominate around the map. You know, I believe they played against Opti Gaming at DC and kind of got wrecked. But Happy had some good moments. Happy was constantly like dominating them in search. I believe OG ended up winning that game pretty handily, but still, it was a good series. Orbit has the potential to be good. They just have to be confident, which I think that they can, thanks to like their already chemistry, which I think is kind of there. Like whenever you're similar to another player, you guys already kind of have chemistry. Like if you have the same mindset, you're already kind of having that chemistry together, which I think is what Orbit has kind of as an advantage. But finishing 1 and 10 in the Pro League, that's really bad. I honestly probably would have predicted them to be a little bit higher. Not much higher, but 1 and 10, probably wouldn't have predicted that one. So there's a player I'm watching from Orbit. It's probably going to be maybe Accuracy or Happy, just because those are like seem to be the main players for them at certain times. So if one of them are going off, you know, they can kind of maybe lead the squad to some victory. So they're going to have a pretty hard game in their first round. As you can see, they're going to face off against ISO in round number 1. I don't know if they're going to be able to get through that game. If they do, they later face ON. So I would honestly say, not that this is the easier, you know, group or the easier side of the bracket that you want to be in. Your first 2 games, if you could beat ISO, you can probably beat ON, because I think ISO is better than either of these teams, no offense to Orbit, which we'll get into in just a second, but I think Orbit's a really talented squad. I think if they can beat ISO, they can even beat ON, but then they'll play against Opti Gaming, which I would predict them to definitely lose. But still, winner of ISO and Orbit, I think, could beat ON. ON's a good team at times, which we'll get into, but I think Orbit has the potential to beat ISO, but I do have ISO beating them 3-1. But moving on to our next team, which is obviously the team who did place in 11th at the Season 3 standings, is going to be TCM. Now, TCM have a recent pickup in Fears. They didn't have the event that they wanted to, I guess you could say, at DC. They didn't place very well. I believe they were one of the bottom teams inside of their pool, and ultimately just didn't have a very good tournament. Jared is the main slayer for them. He's going to be constantly getting in hills. I've seen Teep trying to play. They've been scrimming a lot, and from what I've seen, whenever they have a good time, like whenever they're just enjoying themselves, they're not stressing out too much, they seem to play better. Like they seem to actually, whenever they're enjoying playing the game, they actually do better rather than constantly stressed. Oh, we gotta play this, we gotta scrim them, or having a hard time. You know, the refs aren't listening in GB, like whatever it may be. All the struggles and stuff whenever they're playing calm, cool, and collected, they do their best. So I think if they can kind of master that, they can make it pretty far in the tournament. Obviously, there only are 12 teams, so you're automatically guaranteed top 12. So there you go. I think that TCM's going to have a little bit of a hard time. They finished 3-8 and 11th and overall in their standings. Which they're gonna have to try to pull through. Honestly, I think TCM is one of the weaker teams coming into this tournament. I mean, I think anyone can kind of make that prediction, but it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for them to make it out. Their first round matchup, you guys can see on your screen, is versus Envy, and after Envy, it's versus FaZe. So they didn't really get a good side of the bracket here. Kind of unfortunate where they were placed. I do have Envy beating them 3-1. I think since it's the first game of the day that TCM might have a little bit of a shot, but I don't think it's going to happen. Player to watch from TCM, to be honest, I think it might be Jerd. Maybe Teep, actually. I think I'm going to say Teep, because Teep is the objective-minded player, kind of a little bit. He's the guy who's going to be getting in hills. He's going to be the guy kind of directing everything. He's one of the main speakers, or main communicators, and their, talk and whatnot. So I think if he can kind of be in positive spirits, he can kind of lead them to hopefully a good placing. Moving on to our next squad, who actually placed in 10th, along with a couple other teams. Actually, it was just Rise and TK, who finished 4 and 7 along with them. The reason why they're placed in 10th, but they're tied in overall record, is because of map record. So if you guys are curious about that, that's the reason why is because they lost more maps than the other teams did. So with that, Denial finishing off 4 and 7, 10th in the overall standings. Would have not predicted that by any means, for the fact that how well Denial did at DC. Everyone was like, oh, I don't know how they're going to do coming into DC. They did so bad in the regular season and whatnot. They finished 10th. It was like, honestly, I didn't think of Denial any differently due to their standings. I think Denial's a very good team. There's so many mindsets coming into this tournament. It's like, well, everyone's making it no matter what. We could play, we could try our best, but seeding, we know we're not going to place that high. Like, what if Denial thought, you know what, we're making it to the tournament anyway, let's just do this for practice. That could have been their mindset as well. So coming into DC, I didn't think of Denial any differently. Their first game they played against TK at DC, they ended up getting 3-2, round 11 I believe as well, which kind of surprised me. I was like, maybe Denial, maybe they're just not the team that we've seen in the previous. Maybe they're not the same squad that we saw at other tournaments. Maybe this is the tournament where they're not going to do very well in. Well, they kind of came back, and they finished second at DC. They played very well, and they ended up getting 3-0 in the grand finals to Optic Gaming, but still, very talented team in Denial. The main player for me to watch from Denial, I would say is like either Hook or Temp, but to me it's Slasher. I think Slasher, whenever he is playing top-notch, everyone kind of follows that. Replays is going to be the objective guy. Temp is going to be very consistent. Hook is going to be dropping 50 bombs like... You don't even have to worry about Hook. Like, Hook, Octane, and like Formal are some players I look at and say, oh, they're teammates. They're doing pretty well. Like this guy is 16 and 9. He's playing pretty well so far. And they're already at like 40 kills. Like, it doesn't make any sense why they're constantly dominating. It doesn't make sense. And Hook is one of those players to be watching out for them. But another problem with Denial is probably their hardpoint game. Hardpoint is definitely one of their best slaying game modes, but they seem to get more kills than actually matter. Like, they'll push hills with 5 seconds left with 2 people in it, and they'll grab the kills, which is great, but that team will already be on the rotation, and it's like that 5 seconds really didn't matter as much as the previous hardpoint, which we're rotating to now. So it's like, I feel like Denial needs to work on their hardpoint game. It might just be the slaying capability that they have, and they might just try to fully commit to every kill, which has worked for them at times, and this also became some of their downfall. So we'll see how that works out for them. Getting into their bracket, they're going to be playing against Epsilon first. I have them winning that 3-1. Epsilon's a good team. We'll get into them in just a second, but I think Denial's going to be way too strong for them. Denial's a very good slaying team. They're also pretty talented in Search. Be watching out for Hook to constantly drop major kills in every single game type as well. He's going to be the main factor versus Epsilon. But yeah, I'm going to have Denial making that through, and then we'll be playing against Elevate in Winners Round 2, which we'll get to in just a bit. Moving to the team who placed 9th in the overall standings is TK, who finished 4 and 7, 15 and 27 in overall map count. I casted over TK more than anyone at DC. I casted over them. I casted over every game except for 3. Twice when they were on Alpha, once against Denial, and I think once when they were pretty far in the tournament. And also there was one off stream. I think it was like Vex or someone that they 3-0'd. I can't remember who it was. But every other game I casted. Every game in pool play, they went to game 5. A couple games afterward, they also went to game 5. There was one game versus ISO where they were game 5, round 10. And then everyone got out of the lobby, and we had to play the same map over again, and it went to the same round. They played so many search and destroy rounds. I think it might honestly be a record for this entire game. I think that they've played more game 5s at DC than any other team, or more rounds of search and destroy than any other team in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare so far. I don't know if it's in other titles or not, but they played so much COD. And they did pretty well. They had an okay placing. They placed higher than a lot of people predicted, as well as myself. TK is a very talented squad. I believe they finished 3-1 out of their group as well, which was considered to a lot of people as the group of death. Their main player is going to be Neslo, like I always say. Neslo is the main factor for them. I believe he was in one of the highest KDs for Hardpoint. He was in one, or not Hardpoint, but Respawns, and he was also one of the top KDs in Search and Destroy as well. Another main player to watch out for them is Sharp. It usually depends on how Sharp does, is how the team does. If Sharp's doing well, the team does well. If Sharp's doing bad, the team does bad. I know it's very complicated. As you're going to see now at their bracket, they played Rise off the bat. I do have them winning that game 3-1. I think TK is a very talented team. I think Rise is also a very capable team, which we'll be talking about them next. We can actually talk about them now. But Rise, a very good squad in themselves as well. That's the roster of Chino, Wheat, Apathy, and Burnsoff. Burns is a great objective player. Burns is the guy to basically do everything around the map. Apathy is pretty inconsistent at times. It seems to me it's like when Apathy and Chino are doing the slaying job, the team kind of follows. When they're not, which is a lot of the time, they seem to kind of struggle. So with that, I do have TK beating Rise in a 3-1 fashion. Rise, a very talented squad, but we'll see how they do once they get to the losers bracket as well. So moving on to our 7th place team was actually Epsilon Esports. Now, for those who don't know, Parasite recently kind of filled in for Swanee, who is now on Vitality, actually. There was a lot of drama going around. Swanee was on Epsilon NA. He later went to Epsilon EU, who decided to disband. Now he's on Vitality with an amazing roster, which they'll be heading into Worlds. I made a video about that if you guys want to check the description. I'll link it there. But moving on, Epsilon, a very good team. A group of really young, talented players as well. They seem to get along pretty well. They finished, like I said, 7th. They finished 5-6 and 17-24 in overall map count. A very talented squad. They're a very good team when it comes to certain game types. We've seen them beat Optic Gaming at UMG Dallas, which it wasn't the exact same roster. It was Swanee. But their first round game it's going to be up against Denial, which you've already talked about. I do have Denial winning that, like I mentioned earlier, 3-1. Denial is a very good team, as well as Epsilon, but Denial is just way too strong for them. You look at the Hardpoint, you say, well, how are they going to do? Denial's going to outslay them. Hook's going to be constantly getting kills. Tempa's going to be rocking the bow, as well as Slasher and Replays is just going to be the objective mastermind hopping in hills like crazy. So it's going to be hard for them to beat Denial, if at all, but I do have them winning at least one map. What map will it be? I'll give them Search. I'll just give them Search. I don't know why. I just gave them 3-1. So we'll see what Epsilon does. I don't have them making it pretty far in this tournament, but we'll see how they do once it comes to the losers bracket. Moving on to our 6th place team, it was actually Team Envy, who finished 6-5, along with 24-20 in overall map count. So we're finally the teams who plays kind of positive in the overall map, or in the overall standings. I like Team Envious's roster a lot. I feel like a lot of the time, though, they do have to kind of weigh in. They have to kind of lean on Octane to be going very consistent, and he's usually very consistent as well. He's one of the guys to always be watching out for. He's one of the best battles in the game. I would honestly say top 3, top 5 battles in the entire game as a whole. He's going to be constantly dropping bombs, but I noticed something with them. They always, whenever they want to play, have a problem with getting people online. It's either, let's just say Looney's busy or Jacob's usually actually on, but it seems to be Aqua who's never really there. I don't know if that's just me, what I've noticed. It seems like they always have a problem getting Aqua online, but I do have them, as you guys can see, in their first game, beating TCM in a 3-1 fashion. We talked about TCM a little bit. I think Envy's going to be too strong for them in the respawns. They're a very good Slay heavy team, and they're very aggressive. I want to say Envy is probably one of the most, if not the most aggressive team in the entire game. They're constantly pushing out hills, they're rotating pretty early, and they're pushing out spawns a lot of the time in Hardpoint. So they're a team to be watching out for. Coming into this tournament, I have them placing pretty far, but in their first game versus TCM, I do have them winning that one 3-1, with probably Octane being the player to watch. Moving on to our 5th place team, which is actually Isolation Empire, who also finished 6-5 and 24-24 in overall map record. Their first game is actually kind of talked about this versus Orbit. I do have them winning that one 3-1. ISO's a very good squad. I like to call them the wild card because you don't know when they're going to go off, and neither do they, to be honest. Like it could be Search and Destroy, where they're getting 1v3s and 1v4s. They could be completely dominating a good hardpoint team, on their best map. Like we've seen that happen a couple times as well. They can go off an uplink. Like they have the capability of being good at any game type at a random time. Like you don't know when they're going to be going off, which is kind of a bad thing and also a good thing because teams don't know when to expect them. but then they don't know when to expect it either. So it's kind of like a love-hate type of relationship, I guess you could say, with ISO. They're a very good team. I like the roster. Dito is definitely the player to watch from my perspective. He's the leader. He's going to be the guy keeping the morale up. But Sidley is also a guy that kind of goes under the radar. He's a very talented player. I saw him dropping bombs in Search. I think he went like 11-3 a couple times when I cast over them in like Search. So their Search game is very key. They're a very good Search team, so I'm most likely definitely predicting them to win the Game 2 Search versus Orbit in that first round. But I think they're going to win that one 3-1, like I said, and they'll move on to Optic Nation, which I think they can actually win that game too. So ISO looking pretty good. They have a pretty, not easy run, because they'll play Optic most likely later in the tournament, but still, you know, a very talented squad in ISO. I'm looking for them to place pretty high, I think, at this tournament. Moving on to our 4th place team, which is probably one of the main surprises of the Pro League, the standings and whatnot. It's actually Optic Nation. Optic finished 6-5 and 19-17 in overall map record. Optic Nation's a very good squad at times. I've talked about this all the time. You know, it's like, what Optic Nation are we going to have this tournament? Is it going to be the Owen who's on, who's not arguing? Moch is doing well. Bose is doing very well also. And I talked about Bose kind of previous in one of my other videos, because Bose is a very unselfish player. But people look at Bose and they say, oh my gosh, you know, he's going massively negative. He's not even, it doesn't even show on the stats that he's getting in hills. He's not the guy to push out hard points. He's the guy to kind of pick up the scraps. That's what an objective player does. He gets in hard points when he has to, and he has to hold it down. And the kills that the objective player gets is the most important kills in the entire game, for the fact that once other players push out, once they push out spawns, they're not ready for the flank, I guess you could say, or the next spawn up from the other team. That's when the objective player has to go off. Bose doesn't seem to have that capability a lot of the time, which is why people kind of downgrade him a lot. Replays on the other side is a very good player at that position. He can grab kills that matter. He might be going like 19-17 in a game, but still, he's grabbing the kills that matter. He's getting the amount of time that's key to his team winning. And Bose is a very unselfish player. I give it to him. I don't know how he's been able to do it so far in this game. He gets a lot of hate, and I think he doesn't really deserve a lot of it, to be honest. I think there's sometimes where Owen does really smart plays, and there's sometimes where they just do outright stupid stuff, to be honest. Like, Owen's a very good team, but there's sometimes where you see them and you're like, is that a next level strat? Like, are they just doing something that no one is really predicting? And it's like, no, they're just doing that because they didn't communicate. And you can kind of tell sometimes. If I'm watching like the minimap, for instance, I can tell it's Owen for the fact of how they rotate, how they spawn up. It's never the same person rotating. It's always a different person every single time. Some teams will have designated people who rotate at different points. But, you know, Owen's a good squad. They placed really bad at DC. I think they placed top 20 or like top 24 or whatnot. But, you know, Owen has a capability of being a good team. I believe they finished like 3rd or 4th at some previous tournaments. But I don't know how they're going to do. I like Owen. I like the guys in the Owen a lot. But based on previous struggles, I think they're going to have a hard time. Now we're getting down to the wire. We have our top 3 teams. Coming in 3rd, though, was FaZe with 7-4, 29-17 in overall map record. Playing pretty well in the Pro League. I wouldn't argue with that at all. A very good squad as well. FaZe is a very good team. They've been scrimming OG constantly. That's like every time I turn on MLG.TV at night, it's like they're on their 7th game of the series. Scrimming hardpoints, scrimming search and destroys versus OG, which I like. The top 2 teams in the game are scrimming against each other, and I like that a lot. They've been, you know, trying to learn their strategies, trying to learn different things about the team, and ultimately they kind of are predicting who's going to be in that top spot with them as well. So with that, you know, FaZe is a very talented roster. They definitely did not have the placing that they wanted to at DC. Whenever FaZe plays Optic Gaming, if it does happen, or if Elevate or Denial beat FaZe, or FaZe loses to Envy, because FaZe has not an easy road by any means, because say that Envy beats TCM, they play Envy. Once they play or beat Envy, let's just say they beat Envy 3-1, 3-2, whatever it is, then they'll move on to the winner of Denial and Elevate. Denial and Elevate are also good teams. Like, they're playing the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, or wait, excuse me, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th best teams in the game. They're playing the most talented teams off the bat, and then if they win those games, then they'll play against Optic Gaming. It's like they definitely do not have an easy road. They're going to have to be playing very, very consistent, and all of them have to be going off. Attach especially. Attach is a very good player. He's more of a player to get inside hills. He's not a guy to grab a crazy amount of kills. but he is a very talented player at that as well. Glacier is the guy to watch for me. He's the main communicator. He's the leader of the squad, but they're going to have to pick it up off the break. They cannot have a slow start to a tournament. They can't get 3-0'd by Justice, if that makes any sense or not. But we'll see how it works out for FaZe. We'll see how they play out, but I think they're going to be a pretty good team, and I have them making it pretty far in my predictions. Moving on to our second place team was actually Elevate, who finished 9-2, 29-14 over on map record. A very talented squad in Elevate. What can I say about Elevate? All of them have the capability of going off. All of them have the capability of not doing well, except for Saints. So in 2 seasons of Call of Duty, or not 2 seasons, 2 years of Call of Duty, Saints has not gone negative at one event. Not one event. So to say that is probably one of the most impressive things I've ever heard, and he's going to be the guy that's obviously going to be playing pretty consistently. Around a 1.1, 1.2 KD is where you're going to see Saints. He's one of the most consistent players, like I said, of all time in Call of Duty history. Alongside him are TJ Halley. He's got Slacked. He's got Classic. Classic can go off. Classic cannot go off. Slacked can have a 1.2 KD with a bow. It just kind of depends. Elevate's a good squad. They have a lot of really interesting strategies that I've watched constantly. They're a very good uplink team. They have a good capability in hardpoint as well. But I think they can make it far as well. I think their main game is definitely going to be against Denial. They've lost a couple of times against Denial at DC. So we'll see how that kind of rematch plays off. So, but in their first game, they will be playing against the winner of Epsilon and Denial. I believe that is going to be Denial, so it'll be 3-1. Denial versus Elevate. That's going to be a great game. I do have Denial beating Elevate, but I think Elevate has the capability of also beating Denial. It's kind of like back and forth. But Elevate's a very talented squad. Player to watch out for me, I'm going to say Slacked. Slacked is the main guy for Elevate. He's the main guy to be watching out for. He's a young leader as well. And I think he has the capability to do a pretty good job at this tournament. I've seen him constantly go off at different times. Will he be going off this tournament? That is the question, and also the thing to be watching out for. It is getting really hot in this room, so I'm going to try to not wrap this up. But coming in first was actually Optic Gaming, 11-0, 33-6. 33-6. Coming in second was Elevate, who had 14 map losses. They had 6. That's good. That's a pretty good team right there. Optic Gaming, everyone knows, the best team in the game, in my opinion. People could still say FaZe, they could say Elevate, Denial. Optic Gaming, best team overall in the game. But OG is definitely trying to get that 10 mark. They want to get double digits in overall LAN wins. A talented group throughout the entire year of Advanced Warfare. Like I said, they've won 8 LAN events. Like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense to me at all. Optic Gaming coming into this tournament, I think they're the team to win. They're the team to be looking at. Every team is going to be gunning for them. As far as their first game goes, they're going to be playing against the winner of TK and Rise. I personally have TK, but I do have OG beating TK in a 3-0 fashion. When it comes to the winner of ISO and Orbit versus ON, I think that ISO is going to be Orbit. I think ISO is also going to be ON. And so OG versus ISO, I have them winning that one in a 3-0 fashion also. So then basically storming through the tournament, they have a pretty, not easy run, but I would much rather have the top side of the bracket than the lower side of the bracket. That's for sure. So after they do, in my opinion, beat both of those teams 3-0, they will be moving on to the winners final, which they'll be facing off, in my opinion, against FaZe. I have FaZe beating the winner of Denial and Elevate if they do beat the winner of NB and TCM. But the winner, I believe, of FaZe and Denial will be FaZe, like I mentioned, and then it'll be OG and FaZe in the the winners final. It's not that cold yet, but the winners final, I think OG is going to beat FaZe. I have them doing that in a 3-2 fashion. With that, you guys can kind of get my predictions already down, but still, I think it will come down to FaZe and OG in the overall grand finals. I think FaZe is a very good squad. I think they'll power back through the losers bracket. I don't have a graphic of the losers bracket, but I will try to maybe post it or something if I do find it, but I don't think I have it right now. But either way, I think that FaZe will be able to power back, and I think that'll be OG versus FaZe in the grand finals. Landon, what is your prediction for the grand finals, might I ask? If I'm going to be so kind, may I know your grand final predictions? I can tell you that. In my overall predictions that I had in the bracket show, people were kind of surprised by this. I think that OG is going to beat FaZe 3-1. As much as I would love a Series 2, or Series 1, Game 5, Round 11, FaZe win, Series 2, Game 5, Round 11, whoever wins, I would love to see that. Because the losers, the team coming from losers has to win 2 best-of-5s against who I think will be OG. I think FaZe has the capability to do that, but I think Optic Gaming will be just too strong. Based on the first hard point, I think that's going to be a main factor. Obviously, if this is just kind of like me imagining this, if it is FaZe versus OG, the first hard point is the most important game the most important part of the entire game, the entire series, is based on the first hardpoint, because either team could win that. Both teams are incredibly talented at slang. How OG does is based off of their first game performance. If they start off hot, they do pretty well. If they start off bad, it's very hard for them to get going. You don't normally see them make a massive comeback a lot of the times in an overall series. It's happened before, but it's not always a thing to be watching out for. So with that, I think Game 2 Search and Destroy could go either way. If we see Optic play how they did at DC, dropping one Search and Destroy map. Like I said, OG and FaZe have been scrimming constantly. Like every time I turn on MLG, like I said, it's always OG versus FaZe scrimming. They're constantly scrimming against each other. They know that they are the best two teams in the entire game, and they're going to scrim against the best two teams. They're going to scrim against the other best team in the entire game as well. So with that, I do have OG beating FaZe in the first best of 5, 3-1. This, speaking practicality, every time whenever players cast or when people cast, people in the chat will be like, oh, you're just saying Game 5 round 11 because you're a caster and you don't know any better. These are my predictions. As much as I would love to see a Series 2 Game 5 round 11 Clayster versus Crimsix, I'm gonna be practical. I'm gonna be honest and say that I think OG will win in the grand finals the first series 3-1, meaning that OG will win the first overall tournament for the Season 3 playoffs. Meaning that I think that OG will walk away with this one, winning 9 titles in Advanced Warfare with 1 tournament remaining, which will be Worlds. But before that, I'm going to give you guys my overall placings really quickly, my top 4 and my bottom 4 before we close out this long video. All right, Landon, give me your top 8 right now. All right, I'll do that for you. So my top 8 coming into this event, bottom 4, going to be ISO, TK, Elevate, and ON. Landon, why would you predict ON? Don't ask me. Don't even ask me, because I just predict. It's my prediction. Lennon can make his predictions any way he wants to. Why is Elevate not in the top 4? It's like because OG, FaZe, Denial, and Envy are there, which I just gave away my top 4. Probably should have done that, but either way, my top 4, which I just said, OG, FaZe, Denial, and Envy. Bottom 4, ISO, TK, Elevate, and ON in that order, my friend. How many questions? If you want to leave me your top 4, your bottom 4, put it in the comments. If we want to continue this conversation, put your questions down in the comments as well. Any questions about the team, any comments about the team, let me know down there. I check comments for every single video. I try to respond to as many as I can. If you guys aren't already, make sure to follow me on Twitter and make sure to subscribe for new YouTube content every couple days when I talk about esports stuff and predictions and recaps as well. So stay tuned for that, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.